So these are the thoughts for the week that we read last week. There are meditations on the Gospel according to John, chapter 8, verse 11. Neither do I condemn thee. To condemn another is to condemn myself too. Jesus had none to forgive, for he never condemned. When we condemn, we multiply the need for forgiveness in our life. It is necessary to forgive one another only if we have condemned. The heart that condemns another knows not forgiveness. Peace cannot abide in the heart that condemns another. And now, Reverend Macaulay will give us our lesson sermon.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Today's lesson is on revisiting the law of karma. Several months ago in March, I talked about the law of karma. And this morning, I thought we would revisit that topic. Actually, what prompted this topic was a combination of recent personal experience, as well as last week's thoughts for the week, which we just heard once again. They say that in kindergarten, we're supposed to learn everything we need in order to get along with others. We learn how to share our toys. We learn how to play with others. And basically, we learn what many call the golden rule, which is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Another way to say this is that we should treat others as we would want to be treated. For several months now, I've once again been besieged by a barrage of telephone calls, almost daily, in which the callers are looking for someone I don't know and have never heard of. They're looking for someone with a last name similar to mine, and I assume the person they're looking for owes someone money. Of course, since they're not calling me, I don't return their calls. I just hope that eventually they will get tired of harassing me and the calls will stop. However, these callers are very persistent, and just like a dog with a bone, they refuse to let go or give up. Past experience in these rounds of harassment has demonstrated that even if I did call them back and respond with the truth, that I don't know the person for whom they are searching, that they pass the information to someone else and another round of harassing phone calls begins anew. Thus, it's a waste of my time to respond, and responding just fuels the barrage of calls that clog up my answering machine. The fact is that in the past couple of years, Congress has enacted new stalking laws that make it a federal crime to harass people over state lines using the telephone. You can find these citations online if you're interested, as I did. What's particularly interesting about this latest round of calls is that the callers indicate they're calling on behalf of a law firm. This is to say that the lawyer who ultimately is responsible for the harassment of victims all over the country has, as part of his business plan, intent to violate federal law on a daily basis as part of the ordinary course of business. Now, I've worked for lawyers my entire life. I know there are some good ones, and I know there are some bad ones. In fact, some of my best friends are lawyers. So I know they're not all bad. But as in any profession, there are some bad ones. I was under the impression that lawyers are sworn to uphold the law. So it seems like a blatant contradiction that a lawyer who is considered an officer of the court would be allowed to violate federal law on a daily basis as part of his business plan and still retain his license as a member of the Bar Association. Apparently in Pennsylvania, where this particular lawyer's office is located, members of the bar are permitted to violate federal law on a daily basis as part of their bar privileges. This revelation certainly continues to puzzle me. It seems incongruous that someone who is sworn to uphold the laws of this great nation of ours is permitted by the Bar Association to violate federal law on a daily basis and still retain his membership and privileges in the State Bar of Pennsylvania. But apparently, such is life in Pennsylvania. Of course, the other puzzling aspect of this so-called business plan is that these lawyers believe that someone who doesn't want to be found will identify themselves over the phone. If I didn't want to be found, I certainly wouldn't respond to messages on my answering machine and call them as they requested. Who would? It certainly hasn't worked in our country's search for Osama bin Laden. Supposedly, we've been searching everywhere for him, and I'm sure he knows we want to find him. But he does not call our government and say, "Here I am, come get me." Such behavior would be contrary to the concept of hiding. Of course, our topic this morning is karma. In looking at my life, evidently I did something negative somewhere along the path to deserve this interminable harassment, and that's something I must continue to work on. However, there's another aspect to this situation which I want to share with you this morning, and that's my response to this continued harassment. I've mentioned before that as a result of this barrage of harassing phone messages, I turned the ringers on all my phones off a couple of years ago. So the only way I know I'm receiving a call is if I happen to be sitting near the answering machine when I receive a call. No longer is it a pleasure to hear the phone ring as it used to be, because lately the majority of calls I receive are not for me. The point of all this today is that last week, as I read the thoughts for the week, I had what I believe Oprah calls an aha moment. When I condemn others, I condemn myself. Yes, my response to these harassing attorneys has been to condemn them. I doubt they care what my response is. They're not looking for me, so I must assume they don't care what my thoughts are or what thoughts I send them in return. I'm sure they're aware that they are harassing innocent victims, but they obviously don't care whether they violate federal law or whether they harm innocent victims. I'm sure they simply consider me as collateral damage of no consequence to them or their business. And they justify that collateral damage by saying that they were just trying to feed their families. Such is the excuse many criminals give for their actions. However, most criminals are not members of the Pennsylvania State Bar. What I noticed when I pondered the thoughts for the week was that I, too, am just as much at fault for condemning these harassers. I've not been sending kind thoughts in their direction, and as a result, the law of karma manifested itself in my life in the form of a toothache so intense I had to have the tooth extracted this past week. Not even a root canal could have saved my tooth. So what you send forth returns to you many-fold, like a boomerang. In other words, if you send forth negative thoughts into the universe, that negativity will return to you. In my case, those thoughts returned in the form of a toothache at the very root of the tooth, and as a result, I lost that tooth. In everything we do, in every situation we find ourselves facing, how we respond can make all the difference in the world.